Welcome, 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 everyone. We're so happy that you have joined us today. Today we have Sally Gimmon. She is going to talk about something that I am just learning about and would like to know more about, what it is, how it works, and what we need to do to make it possible. And that is called Spendthrift Trust. Yes. Sally, I've known not that long, actually, but she has been on TikTok and has built like 3,000 or more followers in like
almost 10,000. I'm at 9,700.
So I'm telling you, the girl she's out there not letting anything stop her from anything. So Sally, welcome, welcome, welcome. Take it away.
Thank you, Peggy. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to real estate investors about this because it's dear to my heart. I have been a real estate investor since February of 2019. Quick story, my mom and dad drove from Phoenix to Charlotte. My mom got sick along the way, septic of the blood, was on a ventilator for 13 months. Her November 2018 Medicare bill was $179,000. My dad, retired military officer, had TRICARE, didn't have to worry about it, but I can remember standing in the kitchen going, God, I'd be wiped out if that were me. So I got involved. I self-direct my traditional IRA, my Roth IRA. I use my HSA account. I do as much as I can in real estate. One of the things that I did research on is back in July of 2020, I bought a bank-owned house in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. For those of you who know North Carolina, that's Nash County. I bought it for $20,000 and under contract. I had to sell it at auction when the auctions opened for $50,000. Not trying to be political, but back to that debate between President Trump and First Lady Hillary Clinton saying, hey, you only paid $750 in taxes. My background is research. I started researching that and I found a very specialized trust. The full name is Irrevocable, Complex Discretionary Non-Grantor Spendthrift Trust. The trust has been around for over 400 years. It originally started in the UK when King Henry VIII started the Church of England. I write on behalf of a law firm called Rosen & Rosen Law Firm. They're a private law firm outside of Houston, only dealing with trust clients. There are two different trusts. There's one that's called the business trust, that's for 1099 income, and the second one is a beneficial trust. Personally, my father, before he passed away, set it up for my family to have both these trusts because my brother has a brewery. My sister-in-law has her own landscaping design business. I do MLM marketing. And then for my real estate, it saves capital gains. Both trusts will also save you from your information is kept private and you will not be sued. So those are two very important things. Now let me go over the 5 different words so y'all can know about this. Irrevocable means it goes from generation to generation. If you remember the famous quote by Nelson Rockefeller, he said, own nothing, control everything. The Rockefeller's trust is called The Office. I don't know if you know the book by Garrett Gunderson. It used to be called What the Rockefellers Do. He had to change the title of it. If y'all need a copy of it, I can put that in chat later if you need that. It is 7 generations old. 7 generations are involved. Over 390 people are in this trust for the Rockefellers. Brilliant people. You know, my entire philosophy is follow what the rich people do because they know what they're doing. Just to give you an idea, for the Spendthrift Trust, my little house, 4-bedroom, 1-bath house in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, it went to auction. I bought July 2020. It went to auction August 28th, 2021 because of COVID. Nobody was at the auction. I found somebody to buy it for $50,000 and the paralegal said, oops, it's in an upset bid. Very specialized North Carolina rule. That's one of the reasons I moved here. By the time it went through the upset bids, it was at over $64,000. If I did not have that piece of property in the trust, when I originally bought it from the bank, I used my LLC. I did a very easy 2 different bill of sales saying I'm selling the piece of property from my LLC to me on a certain date, let's say August 1st, 2020, and then from me to the trust on August 1st, 2020, got them notarized and sent them to the law firm in Raleigh, North Carolina that I was dealing with. easy to transition to the piece of property. When the dust was settled, if I didn't have that piece of property in the trust, I would have paid over $10,000 on my taxes for 2021. This trust so far, for what I have done in real estate for 2021 and 2022, I have saved over almost $60,000 in capital gains. I'm not anti-government. I'm very proud to be an American, but capital gains currently are 23.8% on any profits. There is past legislation, those two huge bills that went through Congress back in November 2011, 2021. There is a line in there that for some tax brackets, they can raise capital gains up to 40%. It hasn't happened yet, but it's coming. People making more than $400,000. Also, there is, it got shot down, but the congressman, I'm going to say his name wrong, Schumacher, the congressman from New York, he was going after, it was a New York Times article, he was going after a gentleman named Mr. Cohen, who buys a lot of artwork, sculptures and things like this, and that he wanted to go after what was called a cost of use situation, because you don't pay capital gains until you sell what you have. So this gentleman, Mr. Cohen, has a statue that he bought for $500,000, is now worth over $2 million. They were floating the idea, hey, let's use cost of use. If Mr. Cohen has this trust, they wouldn't know what he owned and how much he bought it for or how much he would sell it for. So again, this is not a necessity. This is to help you save money on your taxes. For the beneficial trust, it's not just real estate. It's anything in the stock market or stock options. It's anything in crypto market. It's anything, I'm going to quote you exactly what the IRS says is a capital gain. It's kind of a scary scenario. This is an actual IRS tax tip, 2003-29, capital gains and losses. This is what the IRS says is a capital gains. Almost everything you own and use for personal purposes, pleasure, or investment is a capital asset and is subject to capital gains. That's a little bit scary. You know, when you think about it, that's everything you have. Now, if you just have the beneficial trust, which many of my real estate investors and crypto investors only have the beneficial trust, the three things it does not cover for adults are food, fun, and fashion. Kind of an easy thing to remember, but what you can do is use a demand letter. My car is nothing special. I drive a Nissan Versa. When I put the Versa into my trust, the Blue Book value of my car was $12,000. If I did not have the beneficial trust, where I make some good money there too, if I did not have the business trust, I would do a demand letter for if I'm going to buy Wrigley's gum, if I'm going to buy a new pair of sneakers or anything like that, up to $12,000, and I would not pay any taxes on that because the car is in there. The trust owns my health insurance policy. The trust owns my infinite banking policy. That's a whole different story. I don't know if y'all know about infinite banking, but it's written at MEC level. I can put up to $3 million, almost $3 million a year into my infinite banking policy and make interest rate on it and use cash value. I do that quite often for real estate investing. The trust owns all my furniture and my clothes. I do not have a house right now. I'm living with my brother and sister-in-law, but they have their house in the trust for themselves. I'm not attached to their accounts. They're not attached to my accounts. They're separate people in the trust. The trust for minors, anybody up to the age of 18, covers everything: food, school, tuba lessons, horseback lessons, anything like that. For an adult, anyone who goes to a accredited school, I don't care if you're going to junior college, if you're going to a college, or have one person who's going to medical school at Boston College, the trust pays for all of that. It pays for another client's dad who's a beneficiary of the trust. Unfortunately, he's not 65 yet, so he's you've got to wait 2 years when you're sick. You have to wait 2 years to get onto Social Security disability. His dad's fighting cancer. I did not know cancer drugs were so expensive. So the gentleman is a real estate investor. His dad is a beneficiary. the trust is paying for the dad's medical problems. So again, the three things it does not cover are food, fun, and fashion. I suggest to my clients, hey, just keep a running total. How much did you buy at McDonald's for lunch tonight? How much did you buy for that pizza? Things like that. Because you'll be surprised how little you're paying for food, fun, and fashion when it will pay for your electricity, it will pay for your water, it will pay for the mortgage on your house, it will pay for everything. Again, for the business trust, in case people are interested, it's anything 1099. The one thing these two trusts will not work with is anyone who makes a W-2 salary. Unfortunately, you've got FICA, you got Social Security, you got state tax, things like that. The W-2 salary cannot be covered. Also, what you will do is when you file the taxes, it's going to be a 1049. It's going to be federal taxes. You can shut down all your LLCs, your S Corps, your C Corps, everything else, and just file federal taxes. So my clients in New York, in California, and Illinois love this. I just have a client from Missouri who is going to save quite a bit because he's not going to file 2022 state taxes. What else can I tell you about this? It's a one-time fee. When you do purchase a trust, I'll be honest, one trust is $20,500. Both beneficial and business trust will be $37,000 one-time fee. You're going to have a team helping you. The first person who's going to help you, going back to the words, irrevocable, goes from generation to generation. Complex means it can hold money from month to month, year to year, generation to generation. 95% of the trusts out there, my parents included, had personal trust that will end when the person passes away. I'm going to finish my dad's estate when I file his 2022 taxes. All the money in that trust will have to be divided to my brothers and I. What Susie Orman talks about on PBS, that's just to avoid probate. It does not stop you from paying taxes, does not stop you from your information being let out, and it does not stop you from being sued. So it's going to be generation to generation. It can hold money from generation to generation. Discretionary means whoever is the trustee can make the rules. One of my clients, the husband and wife, have 5 apartment buildings in California. Their only daughter, unfortunately, is involved in drugs and alcohol. They can have her do 4 random drug tests for them to pay for her housing. She lives in one of their apartment buildings. She tried suing them. As soon as the judge saw it was a Spendthrift trust, the judge threw it out and said they have every right to do that. Fourth word, non-grantor. This is a little bit tricky. It doesn't sound as hard as people think it is. You're going to have someone sign up for the trust and then sign themselves away for the trust. You will need their social security number. That's the trickiest part. I used a family friend. His name is Roy. I know because we opened up both trusts. He signed his name 17 times and he had arthritis in his hands. So that's why I know that. He only knows the trust was set up in Texas because that's where the law firm is, even though I was living in Arizona at the time. The trust is in Texas. He walked away. If someone tried subpoenaing him saying, what do you know about the trust? He would know the trust name, but he would know nothing else about what's in the trust. Worst case scenario, if you can't find someone who would be your non-grantor, the law firm has someone who will do that. The person has no control over the trust. Literally, they're going to be in charge of the trust for 5 minutes and then they're gone. So again, irrevocable, complex, discretionary, non-grantor, and then the last word is spendthrift. There have been 2 Supreme Court cases where both times it's been in favor of the spendthrift trust. It can go into contracts on its own. It can do business on its own. It's its own entity. So most of the trusts out there, when I talk to people like, oh, I can get a trust for $1,000. Correct. That's just to avoid probate. This trust is to set you up from generation to generation. My dad's big joke, unfortunately, he passed away, complications, pneumonia from COVID. When we were talking about the trust, he wants us to have a house with a fireplace and have a portrait of him and toast him once a month saying, thank you, Dad, for setting us up on this. I'm a huge fan of both trusts. I don't know if you want me to put my website in there, but you can get the slides I use. I do a Monday night meeting, 8 p.m. East Coast time, every Monday night to discuss, have a Q&A on the trust. Also at TheTrustIsYou.com, The slides are available and you can set up an appointment with me. And then the second thing I just launched 2 weeks ago, because a lot of my clients don't have the money up front. I just launched learnwithsallymarie.com to help people get out of debt. It's what I've used. The other thing about it, that your team, you're going to have the person setting up the non-grantor. You're going to have you're going to have a team of 4 people helping you transition, put your car in there, make sure your life insurance is changed over, your health insurance. And then you will also have, what is it called? A retainer for the attorney, for the CPAs who understand the trust. If you like your CPA, they will teach your CPA how to file the paperwork for you. But all of this is taken care of. You're not out there on your own at all. But Peggy, if we're going to open up for questions, I'm going to just put my websites into the chat. That's okay.
Yeah, I tried to join and I couldn't. For some reason the connection didn't work. So if you put that in, I will copy and paste it.
Okay. I got a fly flying around here.
Sorry. Contact you. You have our audience contact. Yep.
And then I'm not trying to crow, but I just had a press release I did. I just saved a family. He doesn't want me to use his name, but he's in Texas. He has 88 houses that he is using rent to own. He buys a house and then rents it out. We're saving him $155,000 on interest income on his 2022 taxes. I did a press release and it just went viral. I have 10 different pages on Google that everyone picked it up. So Cliff, you've got a question.
Great, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And I have a question.
Oh, sure.
I get to be the first to present my question, and it's just, you talked about a lot of different things, but what you started with was there's a business trust and a personal trust. And I don't know what is in the business trust and what is in the personal trust, what the differences are.
Easy difference. Think of a real estate agent is in the business trust. They have to work for being a real estate agent. An investor, any investor, crypto, stock market, a real estate investor is in the beneficial trust. The brewery, my MLM
Beneficial
company.
trust is a personal trust, right?
Correct. Okay. Also, the beneficial trust is going to be anyone who has royalties. I have a client who inherited his grandfather's farm with 6 oil wells, lucky him. And I have, kind of interesting, I didn't know you made so much money being a songwriter in Nashville. I have 2 different songwriters on the royalties they make for their songs. And
that's not part of the business?
That's all part of the beneficial. Royalties are part of the beneficial trust.
So what's the business?
The business is anything 1099.
Anything. Okay, thank you. Cliff.
I'm intrigued with putting an infinite banking policy inside of a beneficial trust. How would you do that? I mean, would you actually list the trust as or actually the policy as the beneficiary, or would you actually list the trust as the beneficiary of the infinite banking policy? How does that work?
I have 2 policies, so I'm going to talk about both of them. One I started back in 2019. There's a line in there, and I'm not trying to get y'all confused. There is a special thing called MEC line, modified endowment contract. You never want an individual to be at the MEC line. My second policy, the trust owns it, the trust pays for it, and I'm above the MEC line. So there is taxes, the trust pays for it. So it gives me the option to put as much money I want in it. With my infinite banking, both my infinite banking policies, I get 4% compounded interest rate on the money in it, and then dividends. So I'm a huge fan of infinite banking. So yes, I know. I also am an agent for infinite banking too.
So how do you put the policies into? I mean, are you originally writing it for yourself, and then you're transferring ownership to the trust?
My first infinite banking policy, I cannot put into the trust. It was more than a year. That's with One America. I love to tell this statistic. The day I started my infinite banking policy with One America, a press release said that, I just forgot his name. The owner of Berkshire Hathaway.
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett started his 5th policy at One America. So he and I are 1 degree separation. He doesn't know it, but I know it. So unfortunately, that policy I still have that policy and I still pay that policy, but I cannot put that into the trust as a MEC policy because it was more than a year. My other policy, I got the trust first, and then I start the policy afterwards. So there is a key there.
So the crossover is 1 year then that you have to put that into the trust.
1 day less than a year, so 364 days. Correct.
Okay, interesting. And then if it's not in the trust, how do you actually have the trust pay for it? Do you list the policy as the beneficiary?
Correct, because it's the One America policy is in the trust, and the money I'm making from my real estate, my personal goal right now, I wholesale everything. I want to be an accredited investor, so I've got a lot of money going through my trust. It does pay for that. It pays for my car. I had to get North Carolina registration when I moved here. I failed the inspection. My windshield had dimples in it. The trust paid for that. The trust pays for my gas. I had to get new brakes on it. The trust paid for that too.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to figure out for the one that's not in the policy, what path did you take so that it can actually be paid by the trust is what I'm trying to get at. So
Correct.
Is the trust paying for that policy that's outside of the trust? And if it is,
Correct.
how are you doing that?
So correct. So I transitioned it to say that this policy, that they don't care. One America, the insurance company, does not care where their payment comes from as long as the payment comes. So that's how the trust is paying for it.
So is that taxed then? Are you taking that as a demand note so you can pay that?
It's now owned by the trust. How it was transitioned in, it was owned by the trust. So it's not at MEC. That's the main difference. One America is not at MEC. Why one with Foresters is at MEC. So that's why I put $500 a month into One America, and I'm putting as much as I can into the Foresters policy.
Okay, so you're not doing anything special with adding a beneficiary or changing the beneficiary.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Just to give you an idea, going back to the office, the Rockefellers, they require anybody in the Rockefeller trust, they have to take out an infinite banking policy and make the trust the beneficiary. That keeps the money rolling through their policies that way, or their trust that way. Okay.
And then, so if you've got a policy that's in it, it really doesn't matter if it maxes out because the taxes would be perpetually deferred, right?
Exactly.
So you can actually overfund it and mech it out, and there's no detriment to doing it as long as it's in the beneficial trust.
Correct. And I'm going to be honest, it depends on the insurance company. I just know One America will not let me change my policy to MEC. That I've asked them twice and they said no.
Okay, so that would need to be determined on the front end then.
Exactly.
That's an interesting strategy. I really like that.
I love it. I just give y'all an idea with my infinite banking policy, the one from One America. I use that to buy tax liens in Florida with 18%, and then if I don't want to make this about infinite banking, but you don't have to pay back any loan you take. I just keep doing that. One of my clients for infinite banking started not in the trust. He says he doesn't need it. He started a policy, and his whole specialty, if you know the BRR system, his whole system is what's it called? Subject to. He tells somebody, I'm going to pay you $5,000 to move out of the house. Meet me at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll pay for the U-Haul truck. You've got to be out by Monday. Then he pays him the rest of the money. He gets his house really cheap, and then he wholesales it. And he has done this. Now it's November. He has done 7 of these in less than 9 months. I mean, he's doing a heck of a lot of job, doing it well.
What's he doing?
With his infinite banking policy. So yes, if anyone's interested, Learn with Sally Marie has my contact there for infinite banking, if that makes sense, because it's step number 3 or step number 4.
We have several people that work with several infinite banking that are here.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Cliff being one, Nika's one.
Cliff, who do you write for, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah.
What companies do you write for?
There's a handful. I'd rather not say right now. This is for you.
Yeah, let's go to Q&A.
Let me ask you another question. I wanted to switch over and ask crypto. So with KYC, how are you able to move crypto into a beneficial trust?
you've got to do things. I started my crypto after I had the trust, so it's a little bit easier for me. I do have 4 clients out of New York who are moving their accounts over. 3 of them are at Coinbase, their wallets at Coinbase. They had to go from regular Coinbase up to Pro Coinbase. And again, this is what the transition team helps you with.
So when you're going to Coinbase Pro, and I have Coinbase Pro,
Okay.
but I moved everything, into a cold wallet. So my question is, if I wanted to move something like that into the trust, how would I actually move that into? Would I actually sell it into the trust? Is that what I would do?
You would change the ownership of the wallet. So let's say you have a cold wallet, or you have a wallet that has, let's say you got Dogecoin. I'm making this up. You've got Dogecoin on this exchange. You would set up another wallet that the trust owns and move the Dogecoin into the trust, just transition it so it's in the trust from there. My crypto people in New York love it because they're getting killed with taxes in New York on their crypto.
Here's my concern.
Why can't the trust buy this?
Well,
for me, I started with it in the trust. That's how I started my crypto, so I have no problem. But I'm not making fun of you, Cliff. But Cliff doesn't have a trust now, but he has crypto. He's going to have to transition the crypto from what he currently has into the trust.
Right. Now my
That I
concern
understand,
is,
but what? Okay.
So my concern is that, I can get it into the trust, but then, so I set up my bank account inside the trust. With KYC, in order for me to move my crypto off an exchange into my bank account, they have to have my information, not trust information. So how do you get around that? Because that's KYC, know your client.
Okay, my bank account, I don't like Wells Fargo, but the time when we opened the trust, my brother was living in the Netherlands, so we needed something international. So when I went to Wells Fargo, you get the 17 pages of the trust, it's everything there, but they also had to take my own information too. So that's, the account has, here's the trust name, and then under it, I'm the trustee. So they know my information that way. If that's how that's how I started. Sorry, I started in the trust, so that I had no problem doing it, but my crypto people will have the bank account set up that way. When we suggest Citibank or Wells Fargo, they are the best to work with the trust. If I had my choice, I would have stayed with Co-America at the time. They're so much nicer, but they're not in North Carolina, so I guess I got lucky.
Okay, so list yourself as a trustee, so then you have the ability to convert your crypto back to fiat, to US dollars?
Correct. Once the trust owns it, again, they're going to help you transition it. Once the trust owns it, you're going to function the same way you can any other way. Is your crypto in your own name, or is your crypto in your LLC right now?
It's in my own name.
Okay. That's another thing I did not mention. I have to apologize. We highly suggest close down your LLCs, S Corps, and C Corps, because those are statutory law. I personally still have 2 LLCs. One has my self-directed IRAs, and the second one has my insurance license. So just give you an idea, the business trust owns 90% of that LLC. So the state of Arizona thinks I made so little money in 2021, I could be on what they call Access or Medicaid, but I'm not doing it. The state of Arizona is like, that's all you made? I'm like, that's all I made. So yes.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions? I know
I have a
Dylan
question.
had some thoughts.
Zanemi,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah, if you raise your hand, if you go to the reactions and raise your hand, we'll be able to see it and call on you easier. Yeah, Demi.
Hi, this is Nimi, and I had a question. So my husband has stock options that were granted to him via his job many years ago, and many of them, they need to be exercised now. So at this point of time, since it's been 7-10 years ago that he got these options, and every year from now onwards, he's going to have to exercise them even if he doesn't sell them off. So we're getting slammed. So how do we do this?
Again, this is going to be the team to help you with that. What they would do is they would transition from your husband's name into the trust name. And there's You're going to get a trust booklet with all the paperwork in it, but they'll tell you this is exactly what to do. This is what's that stamp you get from the bank? I had to do it.
Guaranteed
sorry?
signature.
Warranty signature, correct. Dealing with my father's estate, he had stock, and we transitioned it into the trust after he passed away. There were a few steps. It wasn't super easy to do, like how I did with my piece of property, but it was easy to do.
So he can even do it for everything from now onwards, and can he the future options that have not yet been exercised, can those be moved in as well?
Exactly. Going back to Nelson Rockefeller's famous words, own nothing, control everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred.
Hi, yeah, I was just wondering what type of restrictions, if any, are there on once you've put assets into the trust of taking them out? Or how difficult or easy is it to move assets in and out of either one of those two types of trusts?
Not difficult at all. I do here in North Carolina, it's called upset bids. It's a whole different way of doing things, but just think it's an auction. I win with the auction. I have the trust name on it. And then when I wholesale it, it's being wholesaled to XYZ LLC, whoever's buying it from me, with the trust name on it, and it's gone. It's easy to do. I had to change the title on my car. I had to take my trust to the DMV and prove to that the title on the car. Not hard at all.
When you have assets, let's say you had a property, a house or a commercial building in a trust, can you then take a loan against it, finance
Correct.
it, or refinance it? The banks
Correct.
are usually
Everything you do with your LLC, you do with the trust. The only exception is we suggest for your home, not depending on where you are, if you use an attorney, or if you use title company, not to have it filed, because the only problem with your own personal home, some banks won't let you refinance the house or the solar company. So if you decide, hey, I'm going to move in the spring of 2023, in March, just finish however you file it in your state, finish filing it at that time. But up until you decide to sell, don't finish filing that, because we want to make sure you can get, do what you need to do with your home. But any other real estate, no problem. You've got your EIN number, just like you have with your LLC. So what you do with your LLC, you're going to do with the trust the same way.
okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Nimi, you have another question?
I do. I was wondering, is it possible for me to open the trust on my own without my husband's involvement in it? Or can he do it vice versa as well? And then I'm in the state of Texas. It's a communal property state. Can I go and do it? And is that legal? Is it allowed? And if it is allowed, then do I have any recourse to it if that has been done?
I'm not suggesting this is what you're doing, but one of my friends in my real estate group did do this. She opened it in her own name. She put all her real estate into it, and then she divorced her husband. That's how Cassandra did it. I'm not making fun of Cassandra. What I would suggest for the two of you, I mean, I'm not saying you're going for divorce.
Right.
Other than if you were planning on getting divorced, I see no problem with it. But if you guys are staying together, one person can be the trustee, and he can always be a beneficiary. It's you can decide that, or you can both be the trustee. It's any which way you want to set it up, if that makes sense.
Or can I just be the trustee and have him be the beneficiary and do that
Exactly.
as well? And okay.
Exactly.
Or if I was planning on divorcing him, I can be the trustee and he's not the beneficiary, and I can write him out like your friend did.
Exactly.
Oh, that's brutal.
She was my third client. I'm like, wow, I learned something from her. So yes.
Well,
Yeah,
I was wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, and not because you said this is non-grantor. So in a case like this, if they wanted separate, could the wife be the non-grantor and then the husband?
No, you do not want anyone who's a beneficiary or anyone you do real estate with, because
Okay.
worst case scenario, Peggy, you and I start doing real estate together, and then you get mad at me, you could pierce the veil of my trust. So I would never let you be my non-grantor, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up for everybody's Because you know those kind of questions come up, don't they?
They come up all the time.
Exactly.
That's why I try to explain. I'm using a family friend, and unfortunately, Roy knew me before I was born. He's passed away since then, so nobody can get the information from him.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have a question or a comment or a thought?
Angel posted a message in chat. She said, "I've heard you should be able to do that as separate property, but cannot commingle funds at any point." I'm guessing she might be talking about a land trust, maybe for real estate.
And this is not a land trust. This is a very specialized.
No, it's not a land trust. It's if
Can
you hold it as
clarify?
separate property and don't commingle, upon divorce, it is yours and not your husband's in any way, shape, or form. I also live in Texas.
Okay, just to give you, my friend Cassandra was in Arizona, and we didn't know they were going through a divorce. I mean, I know both of them, and he's just like, "What did she do?" I'm like, it was interesting. I couldn't answer his questions. So, the other thing that with the trust, you can decide how you're doing it. One question that has not come up, which I do want to address: people do 1031 exchanges to avoid capital gains. The big thing with the trust, you can decide very easily what you want to do. You don't have to do the timeline. You don't have to find a third party. And then you can also go from single family home, go into a REIT, or go into an apartment building. The trust also covers any rent rolls that you get. You'd be surprised how much taxes you're paying on rent rolls.
So the trust doesn't pay taxes?
The capital gains, correct. So just
They
think
don't
about
pay any taxes at all, ever?
just
the
capital
trust?
gains. Just capital gains.
Just capital gains.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Doug?
Hey, yeah, so let's see. I guess I had one question, but since you made the comment recently about that person piercing your corporate veil, this non-grantor will always be able to, sounds like the non-grantor will always be able to pierce the corporate veil, even if it's somebody that I don't quote unquote know. But if they hold on to the information,
They don't know the information. The only thing the non-grantor is going to know is the name of the trust, and it's in Texas. They won't know what you're placing in the trust at all. Again, if this is something you want the law firm to do for you, it's a free of charge situation. No problem with it. People get worried about the non-grantor, and in the big picture, I tell people, don't worry about it. It's a moot point.
So help me understand the scenario that you painted with allowing Peggy to be your non-grantor. You said, I would never allow you to be my non-grantor. And the reason why, what would be your—
Because I hope to do real estate with her. I hope to invest with her. So let's say
you knew what property was in the trust, then she could pierce the trust, is what you're saying?
correct. She gets mad at me. Let's say I give her $50,000 to invest with her, and she's the non-grantor. And for something happens further down the line, she could get angry at me. That's why in my real estate group, I had somebody use his business partner in the real estate. And I'm like, no, we've got to change this. We changed it to a neighbor of theirs did it. And he goes, I think you're being small-minded. Well, guess what? The two of them are in a court fight right now over a property 3 years later.
Isn't
that's
the
what- that's
whole
what I want-
point of trust to provide asset protection to individuals? So this isn't really accomplishing that, since you're
Correct.
having to
Just-
circumvent around.
Just to give you an example, true story, in my real estate group in end of March 2022, I sat next to a gentleman, Patrick, who has 100 doors in Chicago. He was telling me a story where the mailman got bitten by one of the renter's dogs. The attorney found his LLC with 4 properties in it, and he nearly lost all 4 properties. The mailman made quite a bit of money. Patrick, we do have, in my real estate group, we do have a CPA. He has no interest in this because his whole, how he butters his bread is selling the LLC, the S Corp, the C Corps, things like that. So I made a presentation to him, and he's just like, not interested. Patrick started the trust, moved all his property in it. And in August, he has one of those huge RVs, the ones that you need a bus license for. He was out driving his RV. He couldn't slow down in time on the traffic. He hit the car in front of him that hit two more cars. The trust is paying for his RV insurance, his motor insurance. The trust paid for the damages on the car, but nobody got injured and nobody could go after his 100 properties because that he was covered by that truck by the insurance, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question, Dylan?
No, not one bit, but
So
I'll
true
yield.
case in
I'll-
point.
I'll yield back.
Another client, Brandon, he has Airbnbs. Memorial Day weekend, Monday Memorial Day weekend, the mother of the woman who rented the house said she fell and broke her wrist, and I don't know how she got his name and cell phone. He's up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, rehabbing a house. She texts him going, "I'm suing you for everything you have." Brandon calls me going, "What am I going to do?" I'm like, "Brandon's, where's your trust book?" And he goes, "It's in the back of my Jeep." On Tuesday, when her attorney contacted him, he just sent the first page of the trust to the attorney saying, "Hey, I've got a Spendthrift trust. You know, there's liability on the home to pay. You know, he's got liability on his Airbnb." When he Googled her entire job, she sued 8 different people in the last 2 years doing this. That was her job, was to sue people. And Brandon, he jokes, he's like, "I'm asthmatic. I didn't even take out my inhaler." He said it was so easy to deal with it.
Because the trust had insurance. So you're
Correct.
covered the same way you would be if you didn't have a trust. If you had that insurance, the insurance would cover the.
But if you've got
So did
few
the
properties,
trust or the individual's insurance pay for it?
the trust pays for the insurance.
So generally, so I'm a private wealth manager. We do asset protection.
Okay.
And generally speaking, when we set up our trust for our clients, people can't even find them, let
Correct.
alone touch them. So
And if you
if you're
don't
having
mind
to
my
run,
asking,
hold on, if you're having to run insurance against your trust, there is something incredibly wrong with this trust. That should never happen. Now, I'm not going to drill into you because I know you're a salesperson for this law firm, but I'm just telling you, there's no reason your trust should ever have insurance like that.
Well, would they have
the
insurance
trust doesn't,
for
the
the
property
vehicle?
has the insurance. The property has an insurance. I think you're missing that point, Dylan.
Even when it's owned, so the property is owned by the trust. If this thing is structured properly, no one should ever be able to find out even who owns that property in that trust.
They don't. The law firm has a trust that's 395 years old. I don't know what kind of trust you sell, Dylan. This trust has never been sued in 395 years. So I wish you well, but we can debate this outside of this.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. I'm happy to, if you would reply to my LinkedIn messages.
Okay.
Hey, just to interrupt real quick, I would imagine that the spendthrift provision may actually protect the trustee of the trust. So it's not necessary to have insurance on that.
Yeah. I was just going to say it's actually just nice to do so they can at least get some sort of insurance to
Correct.
pay if someone does
correct.
fall.
There's something.
It's not that it's
Because-
needed, but
And you know, my friend Patrick with the RV had 100,000, 300 and 100,000 liability on his RV because it's a huge bus. I mean, that he was driving. So yes.
Great. Seema, you have a question, comment? Welcome back.
Yes. For anybody who's thinking of setting up these trusts, and I don't care who you go with, don't bother to ask your regular attorney or something. All the attorneys I've talked to are clueless and they think
Yes.
all this is just a sham. It is hilarious. I have,
Yes.
I have spent my last year battling everybody, attorneys, CPAs, anybody else. And it's, to me, it's crazy. That's not like you're doing something illegal. These things have been done for 100 of years. If you are in the business, why the hell don't you know? But you have to use such specialized attorneys, and an average Joe doesn't know it.
Correct.
Just because I happened to start, doing this stuff a couple of years ago, that I know. So I just wanted to say, as a, beware. Just don't go ask your regular attorney who writes your deeds or anything like that. He'll just laugh you out. Or like my attorney will say, I just don't want you to be ripped off.
Correct. Just to give you an idea, I put it in chat. The IRS code this trust is written under is 463B as in Bravo. almost every CPA out there is only doing things in the 300 level. I have a friend who's a CPA who completely argues with me all the time, and he sent me 3 clients who are doing they were going to do 1031 exchanges. And he's like, I don't want anything to deal with what you're doing with the trust, but my clients are happy with you.
Thank you. Marcy.
Okay. Sally, how long have you been working with these trusts?
I got my trust in we got the trust in October of 2021.
Oh, okay.
I was selling it before that, but my dad and I had to sit down, and then he went into the hospital, unfortunately.
No. How long have you been working with these trusts? Before 2021 or?
Long involved story. That's going to get a little bit confusing.
Approximately.
The trust, yeah, I've been working with this for since 2021. Yes.
Okay, fine. Second question. I don't understand how the trust can pay for all of these. Is the trust also an insurance carrier or what?
Not an insurance carrier. I couldn't do what I did until I sold my property in North Carolina. When I put the $64,000 into the property, that's when I could put my car in, could start paying for the insurance on my car, things like that. I have things in my business trust. I have money going through the business trust every single month, if that makes sense.
Say that again, what?
In the business trust, I have MLM. I have money coming through the business trust every month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing real estate. I did something in July. I did something in September.
I don't know. Wait a minute. My question is, how does the trust pay for all of this stuff that you've told us about?
Correct. You have to have money going through the trust. So like, I don't have a house, but if I had my house, that my brother and sister-in-law's house, let's say it's $500,000, that's they would have that in there. I didn't start with that.
The property goes into the trust, Marcy. The property earns income. The income pays for the insurance. It's just like if you owned it, but it's in the trust. There's no change in that except the title changes to the trust rather than to your person.
That I understand, but I don't understand how she is saying that the trust pays for this and the trust pays for all of that.
Because it also earns the income.
Correct.
Okay, so it's
so if you had a rental house,
the income that you are earning from the money that you're putting into the trust, is that what you're saying?
it's a real estate you're putting in there. So let's say you have a rental property that's paying you $2,000 a month. That's going through the trust. For me, I'm just wholesaling right now through the trust. That's how my trust is.
It's not going through the trust. The trust owns the property, has title to the property.
Yeah, that I understand, Peggy.
Right. So it all comes through, all the income comes into the trust and all the expenses are paid by the trust. Or actually by the trustee, but yes.
Correct.
Does that answer your question, Marcy?
For the most part, yes.
Okay, thank you. Dylan.
Marcy, to answer your question, you're going to become a beneficiary, and then the trust is going to issue a debit card that says beneficiary on it, basically, and you use it traditionally like that. That's how they generally work. It could be totally different for this Spendthrift, but that's generally how that operates.
Correct.
And then you're subject and liable to income tax from that as well. So on the capital gain side with the Spendthrift, your Spendthrift, generality speaking, I conferenced in our trust attorney and our tax attorney on this before we jumped on this call here to listen to this presentation. So the primary way to eliminate capital gains is through the use of a non-grantor irrevocable discretionary complex trust, which essentially makes it contract trust opposed to statutory under Article 1, Section 10. So it's not it's not traditional. Now, what they don't understand, and they've dealt with this new ideology of spendthrift and capital gains, and they've talked to the attorneys who write it, and what they found is they're trying to use something called sovereign citizen theory and trying to detach common and statutory law and make it kind of a sovereign law as a sovereign given right, and then trying to come back on the back end and apply congressional law to deal with the tax side. And so they're trying to play, one side of the coin to avoid it, but then they want to use the side that they were trying to avoid in the beginning to utilize it to their benefit. So what are the internals necessarily of this spendthrift? Because you're talking about something that's, what was it for business, 25.5 and then 37 for personal, cost wise?
So the Spendthrift Trust, it's been around. Like I said, the oldest trust is 395 years old.
Yep.
It's never been audited or anything. You know more than I do right now about that, but with the capital gains, it gets deferred into infinity. So you don't have to worry about the capital gains. I'm not sure what your question is.
So the second you stop deferring them and want to utilize them, what then happens?
If it's in the trust, you never have to worry about paying them.
So the reason for that is because they're trying to use a combination of statute. This is the new wave of spendthrift that we've been introduced to, and it's trying to use statutory with congressional law, or not statutory, congressional law with non-statutory and
Contract law.
Sovereign citizen
Contract law.
theory.
Correct. I'm
Sovereign
trying to put an
citizen theory.
article into the chat and it won't let me put it in there. There's a Forbes article that discusses that I could send out to y'all. The chat won't let me put it in there for you.
Send it to me and I'll send it to everyone.
Yeah, because they're
Okay.
trying to use sovereign citizen theory with congressional law to take advantage of both sides, but they don't work that way.
I'm not understanding why you're saying it's not working when it's been working.
Yeah,
I've
I'm not sure,
looked at
Dylan,
the-
you have all the facts on the trust right now. I think you're actually using information on something else.
No. I'm just repeating what I've been told within the last hour by my attorney. So
Correct. Your attorney doesn't understand the trust. I have to apologize.
Our attorneys wrote the Nevada Trust, so I'm going to trust them.
I'm sorry, what kind of trust?
They wrote the entirety of the Nevada Trust system, so I'm going to go.
Okay, Nevada Trust is not the same. That's a state.
I know.
That's statutory versus
So
contract.
Okay, so statutory versus contract, and that's fine. They also do common law trust through 1041A. They understand what's going on. I'm just talking about this new wave of spendthrift.
This is not a new wave.
It's not a new wave. That's correct.
Okay.
This is based on.
I understand this has been around forever. I get that. There's this new wave of spendthrift that's come around. People are talking about it again. It's getting back out in the public, yada, yada, yada. And it's using sovereign citizen type contract type law to try and make it contractual, and then use congressional law, and they don't work together and they're breakable, very easily breakable. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Is that what your team of attorneys is trying to do or not?
They're not. Correct. They're not.
Okay. Can you send me your law firm?
I'll put it in chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Fred, you're up.
Okay, Sally, I've got two questions. They might be kind of basic, but I just want to make sure I understood.
Go ahead.
One, are the trusts themselves somehow lawsuit bulletproof? I mean,
Correct.
is there something in the law that says you cannot sue a trust?
When it's a spendthrift trust and goes in front of an attorney, as long as you're not subject to being sued at all, as long as you're not doing anything illegal. When you pierce the veil, that everything changes.
And in that situation, the trust was conducting something illegal.
That's the only time. Correct.
That's the only time that a trust could be sued.
Correct.
Okay.
Think of it as a titanium vault, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Second question is income tax. So if you're running income through a trust and you have all these expenses that you're paying, the trust is paying for, if at the end of each year there's a surplus, income is greater than expenses, are the trusts taxed in any way annually?
The only thing you're filing, if you have no LLCs, I do have 2 LLCs in Arizona, so I'm not there yet. Only thing you're filing is a 1041, and the federal taxes, everything except for capital gains. So you're not getting it out of the income tax, things like that. You'll still won't pay that. It's the capital gains, and then with the business trust, how they write the trust, they can bring down your taxes. They hate me saying this, but just give people an idea. Lower your federal taxes by almost 70% with how they write things.
Okay, and when you say have an LLC, do you mean you personally, or do you mean the trust?
Correct. I have 2 LLCs, so I still file state of Arizona taxes, and I still file 1041 federal taxes. So
And they're not in your trust.
no LLCs in the
If
trust.
you are talking about the trust, Sally, just talk about the trust, not your personal, because it's,
Okay, so
it's
the trust,
confusing everybody, because when you say the trust, you say I, and when you say your own personal stuff, you say I. So
okay.
it's
So
confusing.
the trust only files federal 1041 taxes, no state taxes. One of my clients in Missouri actually moved to Puerto Rico to avoid paying Missouri taxes. When he came back, unfortunately, his son has some medical issues. So that's why he came back to Missouri, and he and I are in a real estate group together.
So can the trust own LLCs, or is that
No.
prohibited?
No LLCs in the trust.
Okay, okay.
But
so
you can sell your shares of your LLC to your trust though.
In my business trust, correct. Not in my beneficial trust.
Okay, okay. All right,
Okay.
that's my question. Thank you.
All right, and then Douglas had a question, and then Nika.
I have more an
Well,
observation.
that was my comment about that, about this selling your shares. So I can lower my hand now.
I have more of an observation. I highly encourage everyone to seek their own legal counsel, preferably a tax and LLM. A lot of legal opinions are flying right now, and I don't particularly think we can walk away from this with any certainty of anything. So that's just my observation.
It's true.
Yeah, the idea was to find out what it was and how it worked. And yes, then you do have to go get your own legal counsel. Yep, don't do anything because somebody says it's a good idea, you guys. You got to do your due diligence on everything. That's why you probably already have a CPA, and you probably already have a trust attorney, and you probably have some of these people. And if they don't know about it, then find somebody that does know about it. There's a whole bunch of people here who do know and are connected to some people, and we're happy to refer you to anybody you'd like to be referred to. And if you would also like to meet with Sally, let me know, and we'll be happy to have a conversation with you, and then we'll be happy to do an introduction. That's why we're here. We're here to support you so that you can learn, so you don't step in any holes. Really, it's important to not step in holes. We do that throughout our life. It can't be helped for some odd reason. Sometimes we just can't see that hole. But we're all here to support each other, so that you all have had experiences where things have happened, and that's why you talk to other people about it. You talk about money, you talk about real estate, you talk about what you're involved in, what your kids are involved in, so that you don't have to go down that same path that somebody else went. You can create your own new path. So Dylan, Fred, you each have another question?
And I have to get running, so.
No, you're fine. What city is the law firm based out of?
I'm sorry?
What city is the law firm Rosen & Rosen based out of?
Just outside of Houston.
Okay, thank you.
And Fred, do you have a comment? Because we need to stop. Nope, not. So thank you, Sally, very much for this.
Thank you, Peggy. I appreciate that. I will send you that article. I just have to get on another call right now, so I'll send it to you this evening, okay?
All right, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you all learned something today.